Hey everybody, welcome back to She Ace That. It's your host Alexandra. Today we're going to be diving into something that may feel a little bit uncomfortable, but definitely needs to be talked about. And that is the hard truths about sports parenting. We'll talk about how to be the parent your athlete actually needs, how as an athlete you can handle parents. We'll get into the psychology of sports and when to actually step in for your children. I've been a player, I've been a coach, and I also am a parent. I've seen it from every angle. There is so many factors when it comes to communication, feedback, opinions, especially with coaches, players, parents, athletic directors, club directors. There's just a lot that can go from nothing and blow up into something big. I was blessed with parents who I felt like got it right. They were my biggest supporters without ever being my biggest problem. And today I want to share kind of exactly how they did that, plus everything that I've learned along the way. I will say my mom was my biggest supporter in sports in general. She showed up to every single match or tournament. And it's funny because I remember the only one volleyball tournament that she wasn't able to go to on a Saturday because she had to work. Every single other time, she was always there in the stands or on the sidelines supporting me and cheering me on. And I feel so blessed to have a parent that I only remember the times they weren't there versus noticing that they weren't there all of the time. And I think it's something that can be difficult for players, no matter what age you are. As athletes, it's so important to have some sort of positive mentor or support system. And it doesn't even have to be a parent necessarily in any way. But I just feel like for me, when I look back, obviously my coaches were a big part of my volleyball journey, but so was my mom. I mean, she was so supportive. She never allowed me to really stress about having to make a team, having to make a specific level. And I feel like that allowed me to be a better person and a better teammate and team player. I think that helps the coachability aspects as well. So with that, let's talk about being a parent or player going from sinking to soaring. I feel like every single person who's been involved in volleyball, especially, but pretty much any sport, I assume, knows that parent. You know exactly who I'm talking about. Like the one who screams plays from the bleachers, the one cornering the coach after every game or practice, the one whose kid kind of looks like they want to disappear off the court or out of the gym. And even the ones posting on social media with negative comments on the school, club, coaches, that their kid deserve more playing time. And look, I get it. I really do. Watching your child, the person you love more than life itself, the thing that you've sacrificed everything for and will continue to, seeing them struggle or sit on the bench or not get the recognition that you think they deserve or the attention in order to get certain skills, it can be painful. And your parent instincts kick in and you want to fix it, fight for them, or make it better. But here's what I learned from, I don't know, 20 years of playing sports is that parents who think they're helping the most are often hurting the most. As a coach, I've had players be extremely excited to make a lower team and get more playing time, and the parent be more disappointed and angry and doesn't understand why they're not on varsity. I've had the opposite where the player's disappointed, but the parent couldn't care less and is just grateful they're part of a team. I've had both where the player and the parent are trying to gang up on the coach and get others involved and other parents and kids involved to kind of give that feedback and, vent in a negative manner about the situation. I will say, whatever we model as parents definitely can impact our children more. So I think that happens more frequently. But I'll never forget having a girl and her parent would come up after every practice. What can she do to get more playing time? What skills does she need? And the crazy thing is their child knows exactly what they're going to work on and what they work on at every practice, the things that they're working at to get better. And skills, as we all know, don't just happen overnight. Like you don't go from a seventh grade player to a varsity player. It just is not how it works. Progress is not linear. Our trajectory is never exactly how we think it's going to be either. So when that was happening, I would always give the same feedback. And there was a time where their child came up to me and just said, "Coach, I just want to play volleyball. I just want to have fun. And it feels like I'm playing for my parent, not for me." That hit me hard where I kind of actually had to get involved a little bit further. And I've seen that over and over where they just don't want this conflict. They just want to be a part of the team themselves. And I understand from a parent perspective, the intentions are good, but the impact can be completely devastating. My parents were the absolute opposite of that. And I didn't realize how special it was until I started seeing other family dynamics. My parents had three rules regarding their sport parenting. Rule number one, they were my biggest fans, not my coaches. My mom played softball growing up, so she was still an athlete. She still understands, but she never played volleyball. So that was maybe helpful, but they never once yelled corrections at me or plays or things that I had to adjust to. And after games, you know what they'd say? I loved watching you play. That's it. Like, not you should have or why didn't you? It was just always pure support. I think we do have this expectation of we got to be better sooner and earlier with sports, school, everything. There's always this higher competitive advantage, right? I think sometimes we have to take a step back and realize what is more important to our kids or as a player, what is most important to you. Rule number two is that they let me own my volleyball journey. If I was frustrated about playing time, they'd listen, of course, but they would have never marched to the coach. And instead, they'd ask me, what do you think you could do? And they taught me to advocate for myself, to work harder, to earn what I wanted. That lesson served me in every single part of my life where my determination was relying on my own wants and my own needs. It wasn't about fulfilling their needs in my sports career. It was about fulfilling mine. If there's one thing you do get from this today is that please let your child own their own sports journey. Yes, you can help them and guide them and support them, but there is a line where you could take that all away from them as well. I know plenty of people who have ruined their children's careers. They thought they were helping them, but they took away a D1 scholarship by always yelling at the coaches. And it's so sad to see that some athletes have such potential and it's ruined because of their parent not being able to keep themselves composed throughout a season or throughout their children's sports career. So if you're a player, I advise you to try to set boundaries as best as you can, but I know it's easier said than done. And the last rule, they made friends with all the other parents, not enemies. And same with my coaches. My parents were friends with every one of my coaches I've ever had in any sport. There was never drama. They would never talk back to them. They would never call them out for things. And I feel like they knew that the more positive conversations they had with my coach, that would actually benefit me more than the negative ones. So I advise you as a parent, or if you're a player, to tell your parent, try to create a community instead of competition. And you know what's crazy is I'm in my later 20s now. I guess that's considered later 20s. And I still remember the feeling of looking up at the bleachers and seeing my parents just beaming. Their full attention was always on me on the court, whether I was on the bench or the court. And winning or losing, whether I started or rode the bench the whole season, they were just proud I was out there. And that is the gift they gave me. I'm starting to get emotional and I didn't really expect to, but that was the gift that they gave me, the freedom to love this sport by myself with their support, obviously, but it was my journey and they never ruined or took away anything from me. And I feel like I am so fortunate and I understand people don't always have that. It breaks my heart to see the athletes that have had things stripped from them because of the burdens that they've had to take on from their parents. Understanding the psychology as parents, how can you do better? When parents over-involve themselves in their athletes' sport experiences, these are the things that actually happen. Your child's performance anxiety will skyrocket. Your athlete now would have to manage not just their coach's expectations, but yours as well. And they won't even be able to focus on their own goals because they're too busy worrying about if they're fulfilling your goals for them. They're playing to not disappoint you, which is a recipe for choking under pressure, a recipe for pretty much actually potentially losing more playing time and just doesn't benefit anybody. It also goes into that love becomes conditional in a way, and it really should always be unconditional as a parent, even if you don't mean it. When you're visibly upset about their performance or their playing time, what message does that send? Kids internalize that that your happiness depends on their success. And if they're not fulfilling that, then they're taking on that burden and are always going to beat themselves up until they do get there. No parent's perfect, but we need to do the best we can. This also makes them kind of lose their why. Sports should teach kids to set goals and work hard and handle adversity. And when parents take over, kids lose the chance to even try to develop those crucial life skills. They're playing for you as a parent instead of themselves as an athlete or individual. And that's really unfortunate. And yes, again, we all want what's best for our kids, but to be commenting on their athletic performance or skills that maybe they're not ready yet for, to comment on their physical appearance. I cannot fathom, especially being a parent now, providing constant negative feedback to my child. I've seen it firsthand with others, and it does negatively impact them down the road. Lastly, their joy just dies. And that's the saddest part. I've watched the most talented players quit volleyball and other sports entirely because it became about pressure, not passion. I know a lot of people don't have the privilege of always doing something they're passionate about, but the sport they once loved becomes a source of stress. And what incentive do they have to get better at that point? And as a parent myself, I understand the urge to protect, to advocate, and to ensure fairness for your children. But sometimes the most loving thing we can do is take a step back and allow them to figure it out, because those skills will help them when their sports careers are completely over and they're not stepping foot on a court or in a gym or on the field. That's what I wanted this podcast to also be about, is it's not just about that sport. It's about the things that sport changed for life. How do we be the parent our athletes need? How do we support without suffocating them? I'll give you the rundown. Before practices and games, maybe ask them, what do you want to work on today? Not, remember what your coach said about making sure you do this. Like, you don't need to add pressure to them. They're already probably feeling it from their coach. The last thing they need is also from you. Use positive phrases. Tell them to go have fun. If you're playing club, you're probably spending a decent amount of money. Yes, if it's school, you do want them to impress their coach for them to get to the next level. But you don't need to always remind them, make sure you hustle for every ball. It's like, they will. Their coach will be on them about it. Sure, you can say something here and there, but it's just so exhausting to hear the same things over and over again that we already hear in practice from people outside of practice. And lastly, give them a note of encouragement, or I don't know, shoot them a text before their practice or game and show that you support them. Your character as a parent, your children will model forever. And then after games, your first question can be, whether they won or lost, did you have fun? Did you do something good that you really loved? And let them bring up the frustrations. If I had something that was on my chest about playing time or what a coach said or what a teammate said, I'll bring it up to my parents to vent to them. I don't need them to put it on me. I'm going to walk you through a few scenarios that are probably the most frequent between parents and coaches. So let's start with the first scenario, that your daughter is upset about playing time. Instead of saying, that's ridiculous, you're better than Sarah, I'm emailing the coach right now, or I'm going to go to them before practice. Maybe take a step back, especially if this is like a first offense situation, and just say, that must be really frustrating. What do you think you can work on to earn more court time? And do you feel comfortable going to ask the coach what else you can work on yourself? A second scenario, what if they had a terrible game? Don't say after the game, what happened out there? You're usually so much better than that. Do say, oh, that was a tough game, but I'm proud of you for not giving up. Because that one game doesn't define anything else. Right now in my life, winning or losing that game didn't change anything. It just taught me something. It taught me to handle losing. It taught me the times or days that I wasn't performing my best that I still have to use in day-to-day life. And lastly, let's say there's a coaching decision that you disagree with. This is probably the most common, is that it stems from the parents' feelings. And what I will say, don't discuss it where other parents can hear you, other players can hear you, the coach can hear you, and please do not post it on social media. You're allowed to be disappointed. You're allowed to be angry. That is your own emotions. But once you start impacting others, that's where it does cross a line. And if you have to address it, schedule a private meeting with the coach. Come up with questions. Don't come with accusations. Those are some pretty consistent scenarios that I would say I see the most from both a player and coach standpoint. I just want you to remember, You're not raising a volleyball player, right? Or an athlete. You're raising a future adult who happen to play volleyball right now. The lessons our kids learn from sports like resilience, teamwork, handling pressure, bouncing back from failure, those are life skills, but they only learn them if we let them learn them. I don't want people to take this as never advocate for your child because that is not true. There are times to step in when you have safety concerns, when there's bullying that isn't being addressed, any inappropriate behavior from coaches, or any violations of clear school or club policies, that is beyond valid. I mean, at the end of the day, we do want what's best for our kids. We should want what's best for our kids' teammates. And we should want what's best for the coaches too, because they're being the ones selfless to take the time to teach our kids something. But even with those situations, just remind yourself that your first step should always be empowering your child to speak up for themselves with your support, of course. But the goal is to raise young adults who can advocate for themselves, not someone who always needs their parent to fight their battles for them. Again, we have every single right to say something, but be mindful of the situations that we've talked about that it could do more harm than good. One of the trickier teams is JV in high school. And what I mean by that is like an in between, freshman and varsity. So girls that make JV, I don't know certain rules. Like, I don't know if seniors can make JV in certain areas. I don't think they could at mine. I think only up to juniors were allowed on JV. But I will say, I think most of the drama in any sport happens between the JV and varsity decision making of who's going to be on which of those teams. I have, as both a player and a coach, experienced a lot of excitement and disappointment regarding JV and varsity. I've had friends as freshmen make JV. I've had girls as freshmen make varsity. But when it comes to being a sophomore and junior and you're aiming for varsity, right? Like, that's our end goal for most people. But there are some disappointments that can come with, okay, if your friends make a higher team and you're offered a lower team. I have been on both sides of that as a player. I've experienced both the excitement and disappointment that comes with that. One of my best friends, she is a great volleyball player. They offered her a spot on JV as a junior. And the positives of that was she was going to be a captain. She was going to play all the way around the entire season. She was going to build that confidence and skill set for next year for her to pretty much automatically make the varsity team. And I look back and I'm like, she could have totally just said, no, I'm not doing JV. I've coached plenty of girls that I've offered fair spots on JV too, and they just will decline and stop playing the sport because they expected varsity. But when I look at my friend, how she was raised, how she was taught to make decisions on her own, she still took that JV role. And then the next year she was the starting outside on varsity. I just think it's interesting how different players and parents handle those types of disappointments. I will say I was disappointed when certain girls turned down the JV opportunity because I feel like to be a part of any team is such a blessing. And maybe I think of that just because of my experiences and how impactful my teammates were and my coaches were in my life. But there are so many other girls that would have killed to make that team and taken those spots. I always look up to my friend because she did something that she didn't necessarily expect or want, but the way that she handled it versus how I've seen other parents and players handle it is night and day. And it makes a difference for the trajectory of your life. Like, it makes a difference of how you handle things in the future of your life outside of sports. Every child deserves an opportunity to be a part of a team, even if it's not at the level they expected. Your child doesn't need another coach. They need a soft place to land when the sport gets hard. I am here to remind you that when it comes to parenting athletes, your attitude can save you too. Thank you for joining She Aced That, and I'll see you next Wednesday.